Hi, this is Rod Lucas from the radio school. Haven't been here for a little while, but it's super to be here with another great radio guest. This is Kerri Watt, and Kerri is a professional singer-songwriter. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, thanks.
And we've been together for 3 days doing radio, and you've been asked to do some programs at a couple of stations, hence you're here to learn radio.
Yeah. I've done, as a musician, I've done lots of radio as the interviewee, and I've always just been so fascinated about, kind of what goes on behind the scenes, the desk, how does it all work? And I was really intrigued to just get in here and learn the other side of it, because it's totally different. I mean, my mind is just overwhelmed with information in a great way. There's so many things that you just, when you're listening to the radio in the car, you never think, oh, that's what's going on. That's how they've prepared for this show, or that's what they're doing with their hands. Yeah.
It gives you the other idea of what it's like the other side, so you'll feel more empathy with these guys when you're going to be interviewed, won't you? Because of all the things they've got to do, not just interview you, but make sure your mic level's correct and that the meters are at the right angle and not too distorted and not too soft.
Yeah. For me, it's been an amazing challenge, because with what I do, I can only really challenge myself. There's no one there telling me you have to do this, and not that you've been telling me what to do, much more of a sort of like you said, producer, rather than a teacher. But it's a challenge to be in a brand new environment and have all these new things to think about in a great way.
So like I've said on these videos before, and viewers will know this, that you're doing a number of different things all at the same time. Being the engineer, the sound engineer, working the desk, you're the producer in local radio, and on some network stations you're still a bit of the producer, and putting all the content together. So you've got all these things going on, and if you are in a small station, making the tea and doing your own thing too, because sometimes there's just not people to help you.
Yeah. And like setting up the phone calls, that's something I just never considered before.
Yeah.
While you've got a song on, you're speaking to someone, you're trying to suss what they're about, what kind of thing they're going to come on the air and say.
So have you been surprised by the amount that a presenter would have to do?
Absolutely. I mean, I knew
that's
there was,
interesting.
from having seen it, I mean, I know they're, but when I've been in with presenters who've been at it for years, they do it so smooth with their hands and the levels.
Oh,
and,
sure, yeah. But you've still got to have this eye on the ball the whole of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, not that you are, but you could be a disaster as a guest.
Yeah.
How long are I going to keep this interview going? I mean, just because one is a great singer-songwriter doesn't mean to say that there's going to be a great interviewee.
Right.
But you did have a great interviewee. You had someone in from the Sunday Times, and they were talking about books, and you were interviewing them. Now, you've never done anything like this before.
Yeah. So that's the thing. There's a million things going on in your head. What am I playing next? What am I doing with my hands? Who's coming in? What am I going to say? Who's on the line? But your exterior just has to be so calm. It's a lot to take in, but it's so exciting at the same time.
I do try and replicate real radio here at the radio school as real as it could ever be. And we've covered sort of like news stories that have been going on in the last 3 days. Every day is a different day, news stories, and not just taking things off the Daily Mail newspaper or website, but looking for fresh content, which is important. Fresh content, stuff that's just got your view of a story on it with a different angle.
Yeah.
So we've done content. You've taken a number of calls.
Yeah.
How did it feel taking phone calls?
Well, I've had some interesting characters on.
You have had some interesting characters,
and it's fun. I love chatting to people, so I love to hear what people have to say. But then you have to gauge: are the audience enjoying it as much as I am, and how long should we keep this going before we fade them out, or bring the call to a close?
Absolutely. Keeping it short and sweet, as I've been saying to you, try and keep it short and sweet. Radio, popular cultural talk and music radio, you need to have sort of like bite-sized chunks, as we've been saying, like chicken McNuggets. Even if you are vegetarian, keep keep it short and sweet to the point so nobody ever gets bored. But that's not the same for other radio stations. But popular stations nowadays, people's attention span isn't as great as perhaps broadcasters would like, so you have to edit more.
Yeah.
You have to get to the centre of the subject matter quicker than you would have done before. People haven't got time to sit around, don't listen to the radio for an hour anymore. Or if they do it, they actually only hear 20 minutes or 10 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
So we did the callers, you've had the guest. And the other thing, having an appreciation of how long to do each item. So you've talked about personal things that have been going on in your world, subject matters you're particularly interested in, new books, new films, anecdotal stuff that's happened in your family and stuff. How difficult was it for you to get a gauge on how far you should go?
Well, that's, I think, been one of the most difficult things to learn, because it's a little bit of instinct, but also there is obviously an art to doing it as well, to making it just the right kind of little, like you say, bite-sized chunk for an audience to take in, and it not be too much. So I think that's something that I can take away and is going to come with practice. One of the
demos we've been working on, one of the showreels we've been working on, as with another session, is BBC Radio 2, which isn't the same presentation of something you'd also probably like to do, which is local commercial station in Glasgow. But we also talked about podcasts too.
Yeah.
And they're all slightly different. The thing is, the underlying thing is that everyone wants the audience. So how do you get all this audience? Is it really going to be someone from 8 to 80? Are you only going to go for 16 to 24-year-olds? Not that it's really possible to divide an audience like that. I think you could have done. Just to be broad.
Yeah, you want everyone to feel involved, because you don't know who's listening. And, it could be a family on a road trip with an 8-year-old and an 80-year-old in the same car, and you want to appeal to all of them. And that is a hard balance to find, to bring in different elements and bring in something that maybe the 60-year-old dad would be interested in, but keep it short enough that you don't lose the attention span of the others.
So we've been covering all that content related stuff, and being across news.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not in radio or in the media or doing anything where you're dealing with the public, doesn't matter how much news you take in. Who cares how much, whether you're interested in what's going on in the Middle East or America or whatever with Donald Trump and the rest of it. You can be as closed eyes as you like. When you're in the business, you'll need to know about stuff in the news, which I think you've realised that you must be across news.
Yeah. I think quite naively I hadn't really considered how important that was, because I thought, when it gets to 12 o'clock I hit the news button and Sky News comes on and it tells you what you need to know, but it seems like the presenter needs to sort of weave this thread of other little chunks and pieces of news that you wouldn't hear if you just turned on.
So that's what I say. When if you're doing a morning show somewhere or an afternoon, whatever it is, you need to hear what the BBC is saying, hear what Sky News is saying, what's the top of ITV's news, read Reuters, be across anyone who's dealing in news. That could be a bit of CNN news to see what's going on internationally as well as in America. What's Donald Trump saying today? We need to know that.
Yeah.
Not least of all, where you're from in Scotland, he's got a couple of gaffes, hasn't he? He's got a couple of golf courses and stuff.
He does.
So it's important. If he says on CNN, I've decided to close down all my outside interests, which is not, that's fake news, I'm just saying that as an example, that would have implications for some people in Scotland, because they're employed by him.
Absolutely.
He employs a lot of people in Scotland.
Yeah.
So we have to be aware of the news, and we've had some companies today talking about making people redundant.
Yeah,
British Gas, Centrica, and a couple of other companies too. And unemployment, as we speak doing this, is slightly on the rise. People who haven't got jobs, and that's risen. So, things are changing all the time.
Yeah. And I think something else that I've taken away from it is how all of that affects the public mood, and about how you have to be sympathetic to that in what you're playing, music-wise even.
Well, especially when we talked about this yesterday, being across the news. So when you go in to do whatever show you're going into, especially if there's nobody at the station to tell you about a personality dying, God forbid, or a royal story of great importance, that you don't go on air not knowing that information to make a blunder. That you don't read verbatim exactly what a newspaper said about a particular politician and or a music artist, just in case you libel that politician or great showbiz person by something that a newspaper has said about them.
Right.
Because you can, do like a double libel. And they may not sue the newspaper, they may actually sue you. If something's true, then you can say it. But if you don't know it to be true, and you know that it could cause some concern, then the thing you've got to remember is that you could get sued. And certainly Ofcom could lay a fine on you. The radio station will be highly embarrassed, probably, also get fined. So it's a very important thing to remember. When you're being interviewed, because you're a country Americana, well, that's one of the genres you play. It's one of your favourites, isn't it?
Yeah.
Playing at the O2 and doing various acts, and playlisted on Radio 2, by the way. What do you wish that some presenters that are talking to you, interviewing you, would ask you that they don't?
I want something different. I want them to pull parts out of me that maybe I wouldn't have even thought to bring up. I always get, what was the first song you learned on guitar? How long have you been singing? When's your next gig? What was the inspiration for that song? Those are pretty much the 4 questions. Nothing about me as a person. As a singer-songwriter, my songs are about my life and my personality, and I feel like I've got so much more to give.
Are you afraid to say that maybe they haven't done enough research on you?
Maybe.
Well, I think that's what it sounds like to me.
But even like, I don't know, random things like, what was your favourite film as a child, or something like that, and has that impacted? I know that sounds random, but my favourite film was Father of the Bride, and because of that, I learned about My Girl by the Temptations, and then I became a fan of the Temptations, and then I discovered a whole other genre of music that I otherwise wouldn't have heard. I don't know, just something creative,
Well, that's part of our job in radio. Your job, if you're going to be this presenter role as part of your life, which you want to do, is to explore areas that your listeners may not know about. Talking about new films, new apps, new music. It's our responsibility in radio as communicators, not presenters or hosts, just communicators, to reach out and tell people about stuff.
Yeah. One of the most interesting interviews I had was, I'd said somewhere that I'm all about making poetry cool again. And by that I just meant it from a songwriting point of view. But I ended up doing this interview, and it turned out that the woman interviewing me was an ex-English teacher, so she knew all about poetry. So she honed in on this poetry thing.
Oh, great.
And at first I kind of panicked, because I like poetry, but I don't know a whole lot about it. But I started, thinking on my feet, well, what can I talk about? And I started talking about Robert Burns, because I do know a lot about Scottish poetry.
Right.
And then I ended up reciting some Robert Burns on the air, and that just, took it to a whole new, exciting place.
What did you learn most of all about radio with what we've been doing in the last 3 days, as opposed to being on stage, talking to a mass of people, which you are doing in radio, but you can't see them. So it needs to be that intimate feel. One thing that Kerri is brilliant at is talking as if I'm sat right in front of her, metaphorically speaking. So she's very intimate in your delivery. You're very totally different from when you're on a stage with thousands of people there.
I think I've learned a different kind of confidence, because when I'm on stage, people say, you have to have a lot of confidence to go out and sing in front of all those people. But as soon as they clap, you go, oh, they like me. And then you're fine for the next hour. But with radio, if you can't hear immediately how people are responding,
yes, absolutely, you can't. You can't see the whites of their eyes.
Yeah.
You don't know if you tell something that you think's funny, whether they think it's funny. You know, you can't tell what kind of mood they're in and the rest of it. You just got to hope and spread and spread your message far and wide to cover all kinds of subject matter, which is kind of popular in its taste, from news items to feature items, stuff that might be 2 days old, which is still kind of worthy of mentioning on the show.
Yeah. Exactly.
And you know, trying to be different, trying to think of different things to weave into the program. The other interesting thing is that you were able a lot to think of things to do with your personal life that you drew in, and that was important too, because people do like to hear about the presenter. It's part of the personality of radio. And not everyone can do that.
I think in life I maybe have a tendency to just share probably random boring facts with my family or with my friends or my boyfriend, and at the time I think I tell the story and it's really exciting for me and they're like, oh okay. But actually in radio those maybe are the things that people like to hear or need to hear.
People are listening on their own a lot. They're not listening in big rooms with hundreds of thousands of people around them.
Yeah.
So they can enjoy it whether they're driving, whether they're working and or whatever. But I think the secret is, as I said to you, keeping it short and sweet to the point and not going on too long. Maybe 45 seconds is great to talk about something, maybe less if it's an all-music station. But we still need that diversity. And all the presenters that are big in this country have one common thing, is that they are short and sweet to the point, and realise I can't go on too long about this, and it's a gut instinct. But the thing is, when you're playing live in front of thousands of people, you can if you're in radio, feel very nervous standing up and talking to those people. People in radio are, yet they're broadcasting daily, some of them to millions of people. Yeah. Take them and put them in front of even 200 people, they're a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's a very different thing. But it's great that you could learn both. So we've done 3 days. You've never done radio before except for being interviewed, and we've just discussed it's very different. Learning about how to deal with people on air, how to deal with the guests, how to deal with content, what to put in, what to say, when not to say it, when to talk over music and when not to talk over music. To be the self-monitor of everything you do if you don't have a producer say, I think we should do that next. You are on your own. Plus keeping to the time and all those other things that we have to stick to. You know, some people in radio call it furniture. That's the commercials, the weather, the news, the traffic and the travel news and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And remain every day, for anything up to 4 hours a day, being different and creative.
Absolutely. And keeping your energy levels up whilst having light and shade.
Yeah.
In the show. That
is right. That is a great radio expression, light and shade. You know, and if you can choose your music, which most people can't, unfortunately, to vary that music. Well, I've enjoyed the last 3 days.
I have too. It's really exciting. It's just opened me up to a whole world. I mean, I knew that I wanted to come and learn about radio, but I don't think I was really prepared for how much I would just sort of be thrown into it or throw myself into it.
Yes.
You know?
In and out of the studio, discussing it, back in again, having something to eat, and you enjoyed the food.
Food was awesome.
Yes, because we do vegetarian too.
Yeah, come for the food.
Yeah, it's been great. So would you recommend this course? I mean, this is an unedited video, so would you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the way that you sort of, I don't want to say the word teach because you said it's not so much teaching, but help and coach maybe and
coaching,
suggest and communicate would be of use to so many different types of people who want to learn about radio. Someone like me who is brand new, it's all brand new information, or someone who's maybe done a bit of community radio and wants to up their game. I think it's a course for anyone.
Well, come and see me sometime for a 3-day course. That will show whether you're cut out for it, and if you want to take it further, then you can take it further. But we do go into, some pretty intensive sessions where you're learning everything self-op, which we haven't discussed, and that's operating everything yourself.
Yeah.
No one to do it before you, behind the glass or anything. So there's a hell of a lot to take on board, but enjoyable.
Absolutely, yeah, it's fun. That's the thing about it, is you're learning and it's challenging, but it's exciting.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, Kerri, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Kerri Watt, singer-songwriter, new album coming out soon. As I said, playlist at the moment on Radio 2. Thanks, see you next time. Cheers. Well done.